Hello and welcome. I was a little bit behind the eight ball on making sure that we had some comments here from those that are joining us from across the country and across the world. These are global events we've been running with our advanced customer enablement team. I'm joined by my good friend Riley Morgan on the technical adoption team there with the advanced customer enablement organization here at Domo. I'm the director of community, Eddie Small, and we welcome you to another AI Academy episode. Today, we're going to build an AI agent to analyze and grade transcripts. And like a bad presenter I am, I've got all these dings happening because I forgot to put my computer on Do Not Disturb. Let's go ahead and do that real quick so I'm no longer disturbed for the next hour and we can focus on providing you all of this great content. Riley, how's it going, buddy?
Oh, it's great. It's always a good time when I get to be on here with you, Eddie.
I know. I love these sessions. They're so great for our customers, especially doing these deep dives and step-by-steps into the product. Good news for all of those asking, which is typically the number one question on our live streams. Where in the world can we find this after the session is over? Is there a video on demand? Is there a recording? How can I get to all of these things? The good news for you is right where you showed up to watch this session, whether it was registered or on YouTube or on LinkedIn or on Twitter or on Facebook, wherever you may be, you will be able to see it at the exact same link. Wherever you're currently watching, it will be there as soon as the session is over. Riley, today we're going to talk a lot about how to build your own AI-powered agent using Domo, analyzing some call transcripts. You're going to walk through all of those things. I'm excited to see because I think this is a highly requested feature when folks are kind of seeing, what can I do with AI? What can I dabble with? But before we get started, allow me just a second because we were part of an AI Innovation Summit yesterday that was, I like to say it was kind of off the chain, right? It was a lot of fun. We had tons of people involved, and I just want to make sure I give a quick plug to folks that were involved with that session. Obviously, big thanks to everybody that was there. If you haven't seen any of the content from the AI Summit, this is where you can find it, whether you be at the QR code or down below to our bit.ly link. Riley, look, we're sharing resources in multiple locations here on the Advanced Customer Enablement AI Academy. That's something that obviously has been requested. We're having trouble seeing the links in the chat, or we can't copy and paste for resources. How in the world do we get to some of this stuff? And we're trying out different ways, both the QR code and the link below. If you don't like either of these ways, your feedback can be provided in the comments section or the chat section, obviously, any day of the week. My good friend, Miss McLean here from Indianapolis, Indiana. Obviously, I had to represent today, Riley. A large game. I know this isn't a sports podcast, but there's a significant game last night, as we like to say, the Hicks versus the Knicks. And things worked out very well for those of us in Indianapolis. So, Teresa, thank you for that. We've got tons of comments coming in. Obviously, ask your questions, be a part of the chat, and check out that AI Summit. Riley's going to obviously have some resources as well. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the things he's going to dive into. And when those things happen, you'll see the bit.ly link, you'll see the QR code, multiple ways for you to access that when we do it. Riley, what do you say? We ready to get started?
Let's jump right in.
All right, brother. I'm going to let you do your thing.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie. And thanks for everyone for joining on today. We have a really exciting agent that we're going to be building. And the agent is one that I've actually had the opportunity to help many customers implement inside of their own instance, which is being able to handle some sort of information or data that comes from customer calls, that comes from emails, reviews, etc., and a way to handle all of this unstructured data and be able to analyze it and grade and understand how our team members and how our different parts of the organization are handling conversations with customers. And specifically, we're going to be handling or working with the use case around sales calls and how we can take the transcripts from those to understand how our sales reps are performing in these calls and grade them and provide proper feedback via an AI agent. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here and do a quick walkthrough of what we are going to build out today. And just have to allow the settings here.
While Riley's doing that, Riley, you may have to get out and come back in. Oh, you did not. Boy, I was a little nervous because it's been a while since we presented with you. So I was worried that we were going to jump into that, but we did it. Okay. All right. I was going to fill time in the business. We call that you making stuff up, right? We were going to fill a little time, but it looks like you're ready to go.
Eddie, you have me covered. We are good to go. I appreciate it though. So here we have an App Studio app. One of our pages inside of our App Studio app is going to be around our sales enablement. And in this section, we have a form that is tied to a workflow that will allow us to select a call that we've had with a customer and use that call to send to our AI agent and have it grade and review our call transcript. And as a response, what our AI agent is going to do is it's going to kick off a workflow. It's going to go through a rubric of how it should grade and score our call. And then it's going to provide some feedback and send us an email telling us what areas we performed well in, what areas we think we can improve in, and help inform us on what we should do next time. So with that said, let's jump into our Domo instance. If you have a Domo instance available, I would recommend to open that up and follow along. We have all of the necessary information and data that you need to complete this AI agent in today's session. The one caveat is that we're going to be using some tools that if you're on consumption, you should have full access to. But if you get to a part in our webinar today where you don't have access to workflows or to App Studio, please reach out to your account team. They'll help get you set up with all the necessary tools that you need to in your instance so you can trial and test out these amazing parts of the product that we have in order to build really amazing and helpful agents in Domo. So to get started, we are going to connect a call transcript dataset. And so under App Store, we are going to search for a connector called our sample data connector. And it's going to be that first one that pops up at the top left. And then in this connector, we are going to click on Get the Data. And one of the data sources that our ACE team uses a lot for these webinars is going to be our Moto retail data source. And so about halfway down our data source list, you're going to find a data source labeled Moto retail. And then the report that we're going to be using is our sales call transcripts, which should be at the very bottom here. Once you find that one, we're going to click on Next. We're going to label this whatever you want it to be, but I'm going to say sales call transcripts. I'm going to say for our demo here. And then we're going to click on Save. This is going to take just a little bit to load into our instance. It doesn't have that many rows, so it shouldn't take too long. And now that it's finished, let's just take a quick glance at what type of data that we're working with. So inside of our data set, we have just a few columns. We have our call title, which is the meeting invite title that came through. We have our call ID. We have our sales rep, the account that we were communicating with, the date the call occurred. And then we have this larger transcript column that has, if I expand this, it has all the back and forth during our conversation between our sales rep and our customer or our account person that was on the call there. Some of this information, like I said, this doesn't have to be a call transcript. This could be email dialogue back and forth between a customer. This could be pulling in data from a call support system. I know there are companies like Gong, Zoom that will capture all this information, and we have direct connectors to data sources that have data like this that you can review. So after our webinar today, if you want to use this agent in a more production-like environment with your own data, feel free to use one of our actual connectors to pull in a real data source and swap it out in our workflow that we're going to be building with the actual transcript data from one of your calls or one of your source systems. So now that we have our data set here, we're going to get into the actual building of our agent. So this is just going to be the supporting context that our agent will use this data to run off of. And we are going to build our agent via our workflow tool. So if you go to the top set of navigation at the top of your instance, you're going to navigate to workflow. And we are going to be creating a new workflow today. And we are going to select the blank workflow template. So we're going to build this one from scratch. And we're going to name this workflow our sales call scoring agent. In version 1.0.0, and we're going to click save here. And we will see our blank workflow template show up on the screen. We have our one tile that appears. And this is where we are going to start out. So if you haven't built a workflow before, just a few things that you'll notice here is that each tile is going to be tied to a particular function. And to start our workflow, we begin with a start workflow tile. And our workflows can be kicked off via a manual trigger. It can be kicked off via an alert, form, a app, someone pushing a button in an app, etc. And in today's tool, as I showed in the App Studio app, we are going to have a form give the user, our end user, the ability to select what call they want to be reviewed. And so for our workflow start tile here, we are going to customize a start form as the way that we trigger our workflow. And we're going to name this form our start transcript review form. And in this form, we are going to have one question, which is going to be, please select a call transcript to have AI analyze. And that's not necessarily a question, but it will guide our user to select an option in our form. And we're going to change it from a short answer question to be a single choice dropdown. And so they're going to select an option from our list. And rather than adding hard-coded options here for our form, we are going to go to the top right underneath our field options. We're going to click, instead of user defined, we're going to select our dataset defined option here. And we just connected our dataset into our instance. And so we are going to use that new dataset as a way to populate our form options. So I'm going to search for our transcript, sales call transcript demo, and select that option. And then as far as the column that our drop-down options should be based off of, we are going to have it look at our call title as our option.
Hey, Riley. Real quick, we got a question from Joshua here in the chat. Does using the sample data connector count against consumption consumers or customers? I know some of those Domo tools do not. So can you give us some insights on the consumption side?
Yeah, great question, Joshua. I believe this connector does count, although it does not have a recurring update mechanism. So it would only be the 1 credit for the first time upload that would be counted against your credits. So updating that one data set would be 1 credit.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Good call out there, Joshua. So getting back into our form here, once we select the column that our drop-down list should be based off of, when we save this form or preview it, in the actual implementation of this, when it gets placed in our App Studio form, we will have our one question or our one drop-down box there that is based off of our call title column in our data set. So I'm going to save this form here. And you'll notice now on the right-hand side of our workflow configuration tab, we have our field options, which this is pulling or hydrating our form question and the options there. And then we need to now select what our response should be saved as. And so if we click on this bottom option, we are going to save and create a new variable. And now as we go throughout our workflow, our initial response in this form is going to be saved to our workflow variable shown here at the top left. Now, this variable is a pretty long name since it's the question that our form asked. And so we can click on this pencil icon and we can edit our variable name to be more precise. So I'm going to rename this call to review. And I'll save that new variable here. So at this point, our end user has a form that they can access. They will submit the answer, and that answer is going to be saved to a variable here. Now, in our end result, we want to email our person who submitted the AI agent review request, and we want to email the end user the response from the agent. And so to do that, we need to add a workflow tool in order to identify who submitted the workflow. And so if you click on that plus icon, it'll open up a new tile. And this new tile is going to be the next step in our workflow, which we will want to tie to our get executor function. And so if you type in that search bar, get executor, at the very bottom, you'll have this add automation button. And now we have a function in our workflow that's going to grab the person in Domo who submitted our form. And just like we did for our last tile, we want to create a variable and map to save that user information for whoever submitted the workflow or kicked off the workflow. All right, so our next step, we're going to add one more tile here, and this is where we're going to get into our AI agent configuration. And so once you click that next plus icon, we are going to go to our AI agent task and select that as our feature that's going to be processed in our next step. And in our configuration panel, we have the option to configure our AI agent. And so we're going to click on this button. It's going to pop up our AI agent task. And if you haven't built an agent before, that's all right. We'll walk through kind of what each of these questions or input parameters means as it relates to what we're configuring here. And so the first thing you'll notice is that we have three different tabs here at the top left. We have our configuration tab, which is going to be where we describe what our agent is supposed to do, what context it will have when the agent gets triggered, and what it expects as a result. And so we will be able to describe what our agent is responsible to do and return as a result of being triggered. This next tab is our tools section, where we get to provide the different tools and assets that our agent will have available to it to perform the task at hand. And once we set up both our configuration and tools, we can then test our agent to see how it's performing, if it needs adjusted or fixed before we deploy it. So we're going to go back to our configuration, and Eddie has a link that is going to be placed up on the screen here, and we'll also put it in the chat, but it's going to be a link towards a document with the instructions for our AI agent. And so what we'll do is, if you want to enter the link that's up on the screen now and that's in the chat, we are going to go to that Word document that I have pulled up. And the first thing we're going to do is grab this section of text underneath our AI agent instructions. So I'm going to copy down a little ways, all the way down to this last sentence, which is finally, please return structured response. And we'll go back to our Domo tab here. And we're going to paste these in the instructions on this left-hand input box. Now, instructions for our AI agent are going to be describing what our agent is responsible for and what it's needing to do in order to accomplish this task we are giving it. And so if I were to walk through these instructions here, the first instruction is, you are a knowledgeable and experienced sales professional assigned to review call transcripts and provide accurate scoring along with detailed commentary and recommendations. And so, and in that sentence alone, we're just setting the stage for what persona our agent is assuming in this job. And then after that first sentence, we are telling it what it's responsible for doing. And so we're going to say, your task is to carefully evaluate call transcripts and grade it using the provided rubric, rating each question on a scale from 1 to 5, and deliver thoughtful recommendations for how the sales rep can improve, highlight areas where they demonstrate strong performance. And so now, after this first paragraph of instructions, our AI agent knows what persona it's going to take on when completing this task and what task it is assigned to complete. Below our initial paragraph, we then describe what our scoring rubric is that the agent is going to grade against. And so here we have our questions that our agent should ask and see if the sales rep completed those. So the first question is, did the sales rep show appreciation for the customer's time, confirm the call timing, set expectations for the conversation, and ask relevant discovery questions? Other pieces of this rubric include identifying key objectives, making sure they had the right tone, that they proposed next steps, and that the customer sentiment at the very end of the call was overall positive, right? And if we think back at what this would take for a person to try to analyze all this information, is it would take 30 minutes worth of time to listen to a full audio transcript of a sales rep having this conversation with an individual, trying to check off, did they ask these questions? Do I feel like they had enough context to provide the right path forward? Did they align on next steps? All of that takes a lot of time. And so what our agent is able to do is quickly read through this transcript, and it could do multiple at once and provide the unbiased response on how our sales rep did based on the questions here. Now, as you go to modify this for your own use case, you can change this rubric. This is just a generalized way of scoring a call. You can add additional questions if you don't like one of the ones in here and you think you want to test out how it grades a different scenario. Feel free to adjust these instructions here as we test out our agent. And then lastly, what we're describing is what we need our agent to provide as an output. So we're asking another request here, which is please provide some instructions and commentary on what our rep can do better in the future. And then this last sentence is describing how our agent should format the response. So our agent is now equipped with what it's supposed to do. Now we want to describe or map out that response. So we described what it should return here at the very end. We are going to click on this pencil icon next to the agent response. And we're just going to define what are the key elements that we need in our email, or that we want to make sure that we save and send to our sales rep. And so this will include the score that our agent creates, which is going to be a number. This is going to be our recommendations, which will be text, our call title, which will also be text, and we will just respond with those three to keep it simple. So as a response to this, we will have our score, our recommendation, and our call title. We'll edit this last response to get rid of some of the excess data that we're not going to need. So We can get rid of a couple of these and just make sure it says to respond with the overall call score, detailed recommendation, and call title. All right, and then the last thing that we need to set up in our configuration tool is our input. And this is going to be what dynamically allows our agent to review the data that has been selected by our end user. And so here we are going to add a custom input. And if you open back up the link in the document, we have a pre-built input text that we are going to copy and paste into our field here. And so what this is going to provide our AI agent is when this workflow is kicked off, you are tasked to review the following call title. And so instead of having this call title here, we get to use the variables that we have set up in our previous steps to dynamically put in and inject our call title that our agent's supposed to review. And then we're describing that the data set that we're using has the following columns, and in that way our agent knows what data it has access to and can pull to grab the necessary data. So this is going to be dynamic on every run. Whoever submits the form might put in a different call that they want reviewed, and this is how our AI agent knows which call to review based on who submitted it. And at this point, we can move on to our tools section. And in our tools, this is going to be where we get to configure what things in Domo does our agent need to perform this task of grading our calls. And so at the top right, we're going to click on the Add Tools. And Domo has a bunch of pre-built functions already in here that make this really easy. If you're going to build some really custom workflow that integrates with different systems, you can build your own functions and add them to this option here. And you can do that by clicking on this new package option. But today we're just going to be using the Domo default packages here. So we're going to start with our AI service layer. And since this is an autonomous AI agent, we want our agent to be able to create text. And so it can read and input or intake data from our data set. And it can provide those recommendations and do the critical thinking that's necessary to review our calls. And we also want to make sure that we can query the data set. So we're going to enable this text to SQL function as well, so that we can provide or build the proper query to get our necessary data. And we're going to add those two functions. And then we need one more data set, or sorry, one more function. And then that is the function that allows us to query our data set. And so we're going to click on or type in data set. And you're going to notice there's going to be one more package in here for Domo datasets. And the function that we want in here is going to be towards the bottom, and it's this query dataset with SQL. So we're going to enable that function, and we're going to add that function to our list here as well. So we have now three tools in our AI agent tool belt in order to perform and complete this task. What's going to be helpful for our agent is telling it some additional instructions around when it should use each tool. Now, this isn't necessarily always required in order to run it. Our agent will be able to critically think and select which tool based on which step in the process it is at. But oftentimes, adding some additional context by clicking on the tool and filling in additional information is going to just make your agent run that much more efficient in its task. And so for our query with SQL, we are going to select the data set that it should be querying when reviewing our transcripts. And so we're going to select our custom value. And then for our data set, we are going to select a custom option as well. And we're going to search for our call transcript data set that we connected at the beginning. And as far as the description goes, we just want to make sure, please query all columns needed to analyze the call. And so this will describe and help guide our tool here to use this data set and grab the necessary columns in order to complete the task. Now, for the other two functions here, because it's using the AI agent to critically think about it, we're not going to change anything with the text generation. And for our text to SQL, we are going to, once again, just select which data set it should create the SQL for. So we're going to select custom value and search for our call transcript data set again. And click OK. So at this point, our AI agent knows what it's supposed to do here. It knows the tools that it has access to in order to complete this task, and it should be good to go. And so we can now go to our testing where we can hard code in an input and see how it's going to work with the configuration and tools that we coded into it just now. And so we go back over to our walkthrough guide. At the very bottom of the document here, we have our AI agent testing prompt that we can copy and paste into here. And what you'll notice is it's the same prompt that we built in our configuration. And the only thing that we've changed is instead of having it be a dynamic variable from our workflow, in our input, we have to hard code in a particular value. And so I know with cross-checking with our data set that Moto Retail plus Electro Hub is a call title that was in our data set. And then I know that all of this is just hard-coded information around what the data set schema looks like. And so we can now click on our run to have our agent test out and provide a sample response that we should expect when this is deployed. And so what this is going to be doing while it's running is it's going to be using our tools. It's going to take in our instructions, and then based on the instructions and the input parameters, it's going to make decisions that it thinks are required using the tools in order to solve this. So typically, this will start by querying the data sets, extracting the call transcript, and then it's going to use our text generation to review the call transcript and compare that against our rubric. And after it does the comparison, it will output some sort of scoring and recommendation, and it will reformat that information into our defined output that we set up in our configuration. And so here on our right-hand side, we get to see our output. This is the input instructions that we defined. And then what's nice about this is we can see what our agent is thinking through as it is coming out and producing our response. And so here we can see the SQL query that's been generated. It was able to grab the call transcript. It's now reading through the transcript and providing feedback. And then at the very end, it's going to be producing the desired output that we defined in our configuration. So our response to this test run was it gave us the call title, which was in the input. It gave us the score from our rubric, and then it gave us our recommendations. So we can see here, improve our call opening, introduce yourself properly, thank the customer, conduct proper discovery, and all the different recommendations that our AI agent thinks our call rep should include next time to do a better job. So since this was the response we were expecting, we can save our agent task. And once we save our agent task, we will want to make sure that we define our outputs. So when this tile gets finished running, we want to create a variable in map. And this will give us the ability to save our call title, our recommendation, and our score so that we can use it in our next steps of our workflow. And so I'm just going to title this our scoring, AI scoring agent. And now we can click on our next tile of our workflow. So now that we have our recommendations, there's a number of things that we could do in this scenario. Maybe we want to write it back to a data set and save this response so that we can have a historical data set of how we've progressed as a sales rep. Maybe our sales managers want to review that at a later time. But what we want to do here is we're going to set up a notification tile that emails our scoring review back to the person who submitted. So back out of our main controls here, we have an option for Domo notifications. Under Domo notifications, we have the option to, at the very bottom, send an email to a person. And we're going to add this automation to our workflow. And so going back to our right-hand tab here, we get to configure our new AI task, or sorry, our workflow task here. And it's already pre-filled in the fact that we're going to send this to the person who submitted it, which is great. Let's come in here and add our subject of the email. And we're going to title this AI agent call review. And then let's insert a variable inside of this subject with the call title. And so we know which response this email is tied to. And once we've done that, we can save our subject here. And then the next thing we'll want to do is now write out our email body. So we're going to do the same thing by clicking on the body dropdown and select custom. And this is going to be what our email is going to show, and this is where we're going to be passing through our AI generated text. And so to start out, we can say hi. We will mention that the AI call review agent has completed its review of your call. The call that has been reviewed is, and then we can inject our variable. And then you can make up whatever you want this email to say. So I'm going to say the call that was reviewed was the call title. Below, let's see, our AI generated score was, and we can start to inject our different values here. And then below is feedback for future calls. And we can inject our last AI generated response, which is our result.recommendations. And then we'll say best AI agent scoring agent. So this email will introduce what call it was meant to, or that was reviewed, give the overall score, and then all the recommendations that our agent had created throughout the run there. And once we've created that, we can click save. As an output for this, we'll want to create and map a variable for isSent, which will help for we need to do some debugging. And that's going to be the end of our workflow here. So if I click our plus icon, We can click on flow controls, which is at the very top, and end. And that will be our first version of this workflow. So I'm going to save and validate this. So clicking on the three dots here at the top right, we can click validate to make sure that we're not missing anything. The only thing that was highlighted was an informational warning, just saying that we have a variable that has not been used. And so we can now save and deploy this workflow. And what you'll notice is if we want to test it from here, we can click on this plus icon and it will launch the form with our dropdown. Or what we'll do here is we're going to exit out of our workflow. And let's go to App Studio. And we'll create an app for our new process here. And in our page of our app, we'll click on the plus icon, and this will be tied to our workflow. And so we're going to drag out our workflow icon. And it'll be our sales call scoring agent here at should be the first one in your list. And we'll choose that workflow. Now, our workflow start form will show because that is how we trigger this workflow. And so we can now save our app here and trigger our workflow to run for this one. So let's say we want to test out our analysis for our Moto retail plus gadgetry experts. We'll select that call and click submit. At the bottom left of your screen, the success message should show, meaning that the workflow is kicked off. And if we click on this message, it'll bring us to our workflow and show us what it's running with this execution. So the very first one, tile, shows that we started our workflow. We were able to grab the call to review input from our workflow. We know who triggered it, and then we'll wait just a second to analyze what our agent was able to produce here. It should just take a second, just like our test run. And you'll see that our status was complete. If we click on our scoring agent here, I'm going to refresh my page so we can click on the agent tile. Here we can see our email, and we should have this in our inbox as well, but it describes what our score was, all the areas that we can improve, and it looks like our sales rep here has a lot of areas that it can improve on, and then it provides a nice summary at the very end. Overall, focus on developing a customer-centric approach, which I think is always a great idea, and this has been sent to our submitter's email with all the following information. And so here, in less than an hour, we've been able to build our call transcript scoring agent. Feel free to adjust the instructions here, make it based on whatever you feel you want to pull or grade against for the data that you have available. Once again, this doesn't have to be sales related. It can be any sort of unstructured data. So if we want to review comments, reviews, emails, calls, any sort of data like that, we can instruct our AI agent to promptly and efficiently look through all of this information and provide a score and feedback and sentiment on what is being discussed here, which is extremely helpful, especially when you think about the time it would take for a sales manager to review one call. Meanwhile, our AI agents can do this in a matter of just a few, less than a minute. So an extremely powerful tool. With that, looking at the different questions here, Eddie, I don't know if you have anything that you want to promote or highlight from the comments, if there's anything that we need to describe.
Yeah, nothing so far. We've been graced by the ghost of Dan Hendrickson in the backstage area of the chat. So he's taking some of those as well as just clicking things, apparently, which was a fun chat in the private message between the hosts. He's probably getting a good chuckle and laugh out of that. But we are obviously, I think we did a good thing with QR code and the Bitleys. Those things have been working out really well. We did have a comment on that. Our goal is to just try to evolve these as we come up with these unexpected, resources. And if you were to go to the community and see this event, you'll find underneath the same Bitly that gets you the resources to be able to accomplish this as well. I think there were a few people on the session that were like, hey, just kind of go through it quickly. May or may not have worked as anticipated. But other than that, I think everybody is super excited. Our good friend Bruce is what I always say when I see him around. From Torchy's Taco says this was awesome. Going to try this with our customer comments. A little skeptical on the score we're getting versus the comments. So yeah, use that data to your advantage, Bruce. We appreciate it. Riley, I obviously can't thank you enough. Maybe are we done a little bit early? We obviously have time for questions. So if people have questions or comments, want to throw those in. Apparently my do not disturb isn't working, so you're probably hearing lots of dings in the background. If anybody has any additional comments, we're happy to take them. If not, we could give people some time back this afternoon, it sounds like. Although we don't love to do that because we want to talk Domo all the time. But anything else you want to discuss?
No, would love to hear the
Okay.
feedback though on, in the community, if there are agents that you would like to see in our episodes in the future, please feel free to send your recommendations on what you'd like to see us build out and kind of enable the community on.
Yeah, Dan's working with Linda currently in the chat. Is it possible to display the workflow output in the app? He did answer that, and then she followed that up with the output card every time the workflow is with the output card every time the workflow is triggered. Obviously that as well. So Dan's taking care of Linda. Doesn't look like we have to answer those on air, which is great. And now I've lost her comment. There we go. Now it's off the screen. Now it's back. Now it's off the screen again. We can't click too many things at too many times. Bruce has about 100 agents he needs. Would like to call the ACE team. That's what they're there for. This is why we have these sessions. Bruce, feel free to pick up the phone anytime and give the advanced customer enablement team a call. Lots of thank yous. Thanks from Levi. Daisy says thank you. And another great session in the books. Always look forward to these. I am obviously 100% not putting this comment on the screen from my friend Brandon. Wolves over Indy in the finals. Again, not a basketball podcast, but I am rooting for the Timberwolves. Obviously, Ben Shine and Minnesota and our good friends at Target, all those folks, right? I think it's just only applicable that we cheer for the Timberwolves as long as you also cheer for Indianapolis. So hopefully we'll see everybody in the finals and the final sessions as we drive down into the advanced customer enablement team. That's called a segue, folks, as we wrap up these AI academies. Hopefully Dan will join us on camera next time, leaving Riley to do all of the dirty work. Obviously, all of the resources shared with the QR codes and the Bitleys. We've got it all and in the community comments section. Thanks everybody for joining us so much. We can't wait to catch you on the next one. See you next time, Riley.